You can find me rolling like a stone, blowing in the wind down some highway, like smoke in the air on a Colorado breeze. Don't know how to come down. I'm doing fine with my head in the clouds and these boots, landing on some higher ground.
Okay, I think we're good to go here. What's happening, buddy?
What's going on? The great Ryland Fisher.
The great Rich Quaid. Welcome, everybody. Been trying to talk to the audience less because that's not really what they're here to. People watch us, you know.
Right.
So, man, but I do want to welcome everybody to the show. This is episode 10 of the Higher Ground podcast, where we kind of take a song from the catalog, dig into it, rip it open with a buddy, and see if maybe there's any kind of like hidden themes or lessons to be found in there as it relates to life at large. If you watched the show before, you know how it goes. So without further ado, I do want to welcome my good buddy, Richard Quaid. Welcome, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Rich is I've known Rich for, I was thinking about this. It's been a little over 11 years. Met him in January of 2013. That's very
January of
specific.
2013.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I knew it had been over 10 because we met at what was my last job at least, but I've been at my current one for 10 now.
Mhm.
So I was trying to think like how long before that it was that you came in and we hooked up. So yeah, it's good shit.
Mhm. Yeah. Rich is a technologist, software engineer, technologist at large. Turns out we went to the same school. We probably graduated a couple semesters apart. You were a couple of semesters ahead of me, I think. But we ended up at the same job in January of 2013, doing some development stuff, I guess you could call it. I mean, sort of, in the direct mail business.
Right.
Yeah.
That thriving, vibrant business that is
Of direct mail, of junk mail.
Nothing but probably the last bastion of creativity in the tech world, you know.
Yeah, man. And we say that, but it's still around.
Yeah.
Didn't you think that would be gone by now?
I think it's like I thought it was probably going to be in where it's at now, where it's the huge companies that have more marketing dollars than they know what to do with are, still selling stuff. I'm still getting car insurance letters to my mailbox. I don't know about you, but it makes me think about that place and you every time.
100%. I know we always joked about we were like kind of like a tag team on Geico, and all these years later they're actually in a totally different business and totally different industry. Geico is once again one of my clients,
Right on.
But I don't have you. I have another tag team partner now. I always look fondly. I was getting ready. We were chatting, and then once we got all this setup figured out, I went to go get ready. And I was thinking about you. I was like the good time. I always look very fondly on our time there, even though the job was what it was. It was a job, nothing more, nothing less. But such fun times because of you. I remember. I like to say that I was like a equal participant in some of the shenanigans, but I was not. I was mostly like kind of daring you to do things.
Right.
That's the way I remember it. And I didn't want you to get in trouble, but I feel like I dared you to do what I dared you to do, and it was just so fun. Some of my favorite moments were this is in a workplace, so nothing crazy. I'm not saying like that. We're like just tearing shit up. But
Right.
but it is insane things to do in a workplace environment. I think
It
one of my.
was.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was. We were certainly younger men back then, so a little bit less to lose maybe, and we knew where we were at. So yeah, we definitely pulled a number of fun pranks. I think the pin
What was
feed,
your favorite?
the pin feed one's got to be my favorite.
Tell the audience about the pin feed one.
So nobody's gonna know, but when you get something mailed to you from Geico, it originally comes on this, and the camera can't even see it. It's a giant. It's as tall as a grown man roll of paper that's nearly as wide, and it gets cut down the middle, and all the sheets get like cut out of it. And in order to feed this giant roll of paper through these huge printing presses, there's little holes on the side, kind of like you see on like a dot matrix printer. There's holes on the side that those get trimmed off at the end, and those get led off into like this huge central vacuum system that sucks them all up. And sucks them all up and routes them to a different area at the towards the middle of the plant or whatever, and it's dumping it all out into this dumpster. So you end up with these huge dumpsters full of this pin feed, which is just long, hundreds of feet long pieces of paper that are about a centimeter wide, and they got holes punched in them. And so I don't even remember why we decided to do this, but one day
It was hilarious.
One day, was it Scott or was it Matt that was the target of our shenanigans that day?
Oh no, it was 100% Scott.
Okay. Scott often was. I like to pick on Matt a little bit too, but Scott was one of our document creators, and he used to arrange the things on the page or whatever. And he's doing his work, and I think he was talking to somebody. Like he was, he had one of the account managers sitting in his cube talking about, all right, we're gonna put this here and this there and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, from over the wall of his cube, we had a postal mail carrier, box full of this pin feed, and just dumped it over. And so this pin feed just comes down over him, like in the middle of his talk, and he's just like, "What the?" And we walked around and looked at him. We're like, "You all right, buddy?" And he looks like Cousin It with this pin feed just hanging off of him. It's like, you guys, it's good times.
I think I might be combining two stories in my head. This is one of those things you definitely had to be there because it's all about the visual, So,
right.
Yeah, I am almost crying after all these years. It's just so funny. Oh, I got one too. I want to share before we get to the song. But I think in my mind, and maybe you are too, there was actually two pin feed or paper related incidents with Scott. One of them was dumping the pin feed, and so this is not shredded. These are like, it was an easy cleanup, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
But then there was another one.
You're thinking of the punches.
Is that what it was?
The dots.
Is that what it was?
See, that's the thing. That's what I think. The pin feed, that story I just told, I think was with Matt, and I think the punches is the story you're remembering. And that one, the punches was the one I did get in trouble for.
That one is my favorite one. That one was brutal.
Yeah.
Because now it's like confetti.
Right.
All over. And and to follow it up, to kind of put a nice little cherry on top of the prank, if you want to call it that. It's really just mean. But to top it off, you refuse to clean it up. So then that's why it became a problem.
Yeah.
But that's that kind of stuff, man. I grew up doing like stuff like that was like kind of mean and like a little outrageous that you could never get away with today. But yeah, like that in an office environment is just man, just too funny to me. I did this one. We'll get on to the real topic of discussion, but it's sorry, we haven't seen each other in forever. Rich is in Chicago. I'm here in Nashville. Haven't seen each other in at least a year or two, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's been. I think it's actually been a little over 2. Because I think like usually I try to come down there every other year or so, and I think this year was supposed to be my year that I went down there.
Yeah, you got to come down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so the one I did to I also did this one to Scott. I guess he was like gullible, so he was always like a good target because it'd be a funny outcome, But I remember taking like a mouse, like I did the thing where now I'm remembering 2 things. All right. He was sitting at his cubicle doing his work. And what I did when he got up at some point, I wouldn't, I had a Bluetooth mouse that was wireless. And he had one of those docking stations. So with all these extra USB ports, and I went and plugged it into the back of his computer. And then he went and sat down and was going back to his stuff. And then I'd be like, I'd take the mouse and go, like just randomly, like every like 90 seconds or something. And then he started to lose his mind, and he didn't know who it was because we were all keeping it together. I think I like lose it over stuff like when the guy getting I can't keep the secret, but it was like people were aware enough where you didn't really just know it was me because everybody was kind of laughing. So that he doesn't really know who it is. So then, but nobody's like fessing up to it. So then he goes and tells our boss too. So that one you can't get in a ton of trouble for. But I think he thought like there was some conspiracy, like somebody was like breaking into his shit.
He kept blaming me because he thought he didn't even think that it was a Bluetooth mouse. He thought somebody was remote controlling his computer.
Right.
And I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And like at the time, like I was, on the software side, but I was also on the admin side. And so he thought I had the ability to just remote control his computer. And he just kept, I know it's you. You want to watch, man? It's not me. I was like, every time it's me, I always admit it because I love telling you, yeah, that was me.
Dude, it just cracked me up so hard. Like again, had to be there. I probably sound ridiculous to the audience right now, but like, man, like again, every 90 seconds I would like, and then you can't see him. So that's what like made it so funny for me is like you can't see him. So I'm like, with the mouse, and then I just wait. And then you hear him like have a meltdown, you know what I mean? He's like, what the? You know what I mean? And I just could not keep it together. Oh, too funny. Too funny. Yeah, I would never do stuff like that today. Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've definitely toned it down quite a bit. The biggest thing that I've done at like my current gig even still was probably 6 or 7 years ago, where I did the thing where just wrapped up my safety manager, all of his entire desk, just wrapped all of it up in like wrapping paper.
Oh, that's
so
great.
He left. My birthday is real close to April Fool's Day, and so there's oftentimes like my birthday and April Fool's Day are going to end up around the same weekend or what have you. So it's the Friday before April Fool's Day. It used to be a real bad idea to leave the office before me because you would come back in on Monday and something would be weird. And yeah, his stuff, he was out that Friday for some reason, and I recruited probably 6 or 7 people from the plant to help me wrap all of this stuff because he's like this OG safety guy and has all of his little binders and stuff like everywhere and all this, he's got all of the old office accoutrement that a guy like that has, and we wrapped up everything. We
That's
wrapped up
amazing.
pencils, and but even that was like 6 or 7 years ago. I think I haven't pulled like a prank on that scale in a while.
That sounds very Jim Halpert and
Right.
Dwight.
Right. That was definitely the inspiration for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we are here today as we discussed. When I started the show, I thought about a lot of people, you being one of them right away. You've always been a big supporter of this music, and I always appreciate that. And I just thought we would have fun talking about a song of your choice, as we always say. Try to have the guest come on, and unless I'm kind of dying to discuss one song with a particular person, I really want the guest to pick the song to discuss, because this is all about. It's not about me. It's not about the music as much as it's about how this music is connecting. How a song connects to you, how you relate to it, to see if maybe there's something going on in that song that maybe is not so obvious to me and other people. And usually what we find is a lot of lessons, a lot of cool little anecdotes that come out of these conversations. So today, Rich picked a song from the 4th album, Finding My Way Back Home. Actually, the title track, Finding My Way Back Home. This happens to be probably currently my favorite song, or at least in the top 3. Wrote this one with longtime co-writer Joey Ebach. Wrote it during a time when was going through it was kind of standing at a crossroads, and I'm sure you know what that's like. I think we all do. Finding My Way Back Home. This is a really special song. There's a lot to talk about here, and what I want to know kind of first is what drew you to this song.
So these days I'm a biker here in Chicago. I don't ride with a club anymore, but I used to. But motorcycles has become a very large part of my life. And when I first heard this song, it just something connected with me on that level, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of a biker song, and always really dug it. And then once you asked about doing this, we threw a few ideas out there. I think we had 2 that we were really thinking of, and then we were trying to dial it in and listen to this song a few more times, and just really connected with me, not just on like the biker level, but on like, it seems to be talking about a lot of the reasons why I'm into motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
Like this song is talking about a lot of those same themes, and even like abstract concepts that, it fits a very similar space in my heart that motorcycles do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we ended up landing on this song.
That's really great to hear, and I can't wait to dig into that. I think I was thinking about how we could get into that, and I wanted to read a couple short passages. To me, again, I don't. This is not what I think it's about, but I want to kind of throw a couple thoughts out there to see if maybe they land with you a little bit.
I'm just as interested in hearing like your interpretation of it. I definitely want to hear both sides of this, because I've got plenty of notes, plenty of stuff to talk about. But I'm interested.
Yes, I'm really excited about this one, because this is one of before I kind of read these passages, I want to mention This song was written during, I'm sure we'll get into this topic at some point, but this was written again at a crossroads of leaving the past behind, moving forward, with a lot of uh, independent thinking on my mind and in my heart, if that makes sense. And kind of being mad, being a little angry, being a little frustrated but in a way that moves you to something better, something bigger and better. That said, to me, it's kind of two things. The first is I thought about that short Robert Frost poem called "The Road Not Taken," and then the other thing is this, finding my way back home. That when I hear that, I think about kind of a full circle in life, coming back to where you started, going miles and miles and miles and miles, and you wake up one day in your 30s and you realize, oh, I just went in a circle. And it's not like the circle that was, and we're gonna get into this. I know I feel like you would feel that and connect with that, but it's not a wasted. The miles aren't wasted. They're just like when you take your motorcycle rides. Some people are like, well, I just go from point A to point B. Well, that's not what it's about for you. It's
Right.
it's a whole other thing. So anyway, to kick us off, I wanted to read that Robert Frost poem for those that haven't heard it yet. It's very short. It's called "The Road Not Taken." Two roads diverged a yellow wood. Sorry, could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So it's an older poem. I feel like finding my way back home, part of what we're saying in there, to answer your question, I think half of it is a modern version of maybe that. And I think the other half conceptually comes from a quote by Bret Hart. Bret Hart's a professional wrestler, a former professional wrestler, Hall of Famer. During his Hall of Fame speech, he said, and this is a guy that really took his craft and his art so seriously, as seriously as one could. And he had a great quote in his Hall of Fame speech, and I wanted to read it because I think it's the other half of this kind of idea. The best chance you have if you want to rise to the top is to give yourself up to loneliness. Fear nothing and work hard. One thing you'll discover is that life is based less than you think on what you've learned, and much more than you think on what you have inside you right from the beginning. That's that full circle of coming back home that I was talking about. So that's what it means to me, man.
Right on. So it's interesting. It's interesting to me that you talk about like being at a crossroads, and moving forward. And it's also interesting that you bring up the road less traveled and and coming back, because that is one thing that I picked out. And also it's funny because you picked out like the exact like time in your life, like age time in your life, that I think you come to that, right? Is somewhere in your 30s, mid to late 30s, maybe. And I think, like, to back up a little bit, in your teens and in your early 20s, you're so, I shouldn't say you, I should say me. I was so headstrong.
Yes.
And thought I knew exactly what I was, where I was going, how to get there, and nobody could tell me anything. And, I just sort of charged through life. And then, got to this point in my 30s where I realized that where I was not where I thought I would be, and not where I wanted to be anymore. So I had to deliberately circle back to where I was. And so for me, it's less about like being at a crossroads and moving on, and more about, you realize you've gone this far. And I fully agree with you. It's not that those miles were wasted. That part of the journey was important. You realized, like, who you were and who you weren't during that time. But now, in order to make progress, if you're out on the road and you realize that you're completely lost, you have no idea where you're at, you can't just keep blindly pushing forward. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. You gotta circle back, and you got to keep going back until you find yourself at a place where you do know where you are. You know what I mean? And so you keep going back, keep going back. And then once you get to a place where you're on surer footing, then you can make a more informed and deliberate decision about where you're going to go from here. And you take the knowledge and the lessons those mistakes taught you with you. And you can start, moving forward in the direction that you want. So to bring that back to life, you spend your teenage years and your 20s making a lot of mistakes, and that's, everybody does. And so, for me, there was like a clearing out of a lot of stuff in my life that had gone through that time. Lots of people that were in my life that are no longer in my life. Lots of habits and, things like that were no longer there. And you get back to this place, and to me, the home that you're finding your way back to, so to speak, is it's a place in your soul, if nothing else.
Yeah.
You're getting back to this place where you are more your authentic self. And there's a lot of lyrics that get into that as well, and we'll probably get into that. But you have to deliberately take yourself back to a place where you realize who you are, and then you can start moving forward.
That is very profound. That metaphor of being on a motorcycle ride into kind of maybe parts unknown,
right,
for you, having that experience of feeling kind of like lost,
right,
circling back to kind of that last place that you really know and you have some bearings, and taking all that stuff that you learned on that, getting lost, all those lessons. That's exactly what, if you read that lyric down, I mean, at least to me, wow, what a metaphor. And that's what's really cool about this show. I think what I've been noticing is that there are some subconscious things happening through the art creation. For example, what I'm noticing right now is, I don't know if you've seen the music video for the song, but okay, and maybe there's other songs that are kind of adjacent to this topic that we're talking about. But my point being is that do some things and you don't think too much about them, and they kind of come full circle in conversations like these. Like there's another song called Higher Ground, and I think in the Finding My Way Back Home video, there's actually that metaphor that it shows up visually in the music video that I created.
Right.
So yeah, very interesting, because I would have never, because I don't ride a motorcycle actually, as much as I would like to. I haven't found the time to do that yet in my life, but I've always been kind of really fascinated with that pastime, and thought it was obvious to me that this is a good fit, but not knowing really why. So to hear you say that, it makes perfect sense, because it's just a perfect metaphor and analogy for what it is that we're talking about. Yeah, you get lost, you come back with these newfound lessons, and then you proceed, and it's probably going to work out better that next time, right? Which is why the miles aren't wasted. So
for sure.
That's great, dude. Very cool.
Yeah, no, and I don't know about you, but yeah, I look at my 30s as sort of my second try at starting a life.
For sure.
First one, did a lot of learning. Second one, I did a lot of executing, and it went much better. Much better the second time around, because then you have the benefit of that experience and those lessons on. Again, it's there's like that one level deep where it's like, okay, you learn to the things that don't work, but then there's that second level deep, which I think the song gets into much more clearly, of you realize the things that are not you. Like especially when you're a teenager, but I think this does carry into your 20s as well. You're finding out who you are more than anybody else. Like you can talk to anybody who's been close to you your whole life, but especially like your immediate family or whatever. They could have told you when you were a teenager, this isn't you, that's not you, whatever. And of course, you don't listen to them because you're young and you're headstrong.
Know everything. Yeah.
But then once you get through that period and you go back and you realize, oh yeah, that you're right. I was trying to construct this identity because there was this gap. There was this gap between who I am and a full personality, because you're not a whole human at that point in your life. And I think there's this sort of innate like realization of that, like this very primal, like I'm part of who I am, but there's more of me to find and to build and to grow. And you go searching for that, and you try on so many different things during that period of time. And it's not, I hesitate to say it's inauthentic, because it is from like an authentic desire to figure out what this thing is that's missing from you. But it is artificial in a certain sense, in that you're deliberately crafting it. And so some of that stuff works and some of it doesn't. And when you do have that coming back home sort of moment in your life, a lot of it is realizing, casting off all of those things that you picked up along the way that you realize don't serve you.
100%. That's so cool to just hear you come at it from that angle. There's another angle that I think of when I think of you personally. We've known each other for a long time. And when I met you, that's what I think what's cool about life is that I didn't necessarily, I think when I met you and when we've, the first few years of knowing you, I was thinking about this. I was getting ready too. I don't mean this in like a negative way or a weird way of any kind. I love life because you meet people from all walks of life and you develop strong bonds with people from all walks of life. I a lot of I remember thinking that you and I were very different. You know what I mean? When we met, you're at least what was on the surface, right? Like on the surface or superficially, I considered you and I kind of like apples and oranges a little bit.
Yeah.
So then you wonder, it's like, well, why would you have such a strong bond with somebody? And I don't, yeah, the whole opposites attract to a point, but not always. Sometimes it's getting past that superficiality
Right.
of like, oh, Rich is of this personality and I'm of this personality, walking into just meeting you at our job, right? That's where I'm thinking I'm a different guy than this guy, but I like him. I don't know yet. So years go on, right? And then you get to some of that stuff starts to make sense. It's
Right.
like, okay, it's not that we're so different. It's that there's a couple things about us that are very strong, and strong in the sense of they're a big trait, like one of the most powerful traits of us as human beings. And I would say, I think one of ours is our rebelliousness. You talked about being, kind of strong-willed and in your 20s and stuff like that. And I don't see either of us, kind of losing that kind of thing all the way because it served us. It's probably been the thing that's where we, it's allowed us to shoot ourselves in the foot in a lot of cases, but it's also been, one of our biggest strengths and the thing that's like kind of like been a part of the best things in our lives as well. That rebelliousness and the strong will to maybe deviate from the crowd,
Yeah.
which we talk about in the song. I'm sure
Right.
you're aware of those lyrics. And again, it aligns with some of these other metaphors we're talking about. The independence of being somebody who rides motorcycles. That's a bit different. Again, it's such a great metaphor because what a motorcycle is not in every way, in the way it's written, and the bending of the rules around, on the road, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is not the same as like a Honda Civic or something,
Right.
you know what I mean, or a Corolla or whatever.
Right,
It's
right.
not that life. It's not that experience. So, yeah, I just think it's such a great metaphor. But I wanted to kind of, it took me a long way to get there, but I think you know what I'm saying. I finally figured out why our bond is so tight, and when we get together, it could be years. I haven't talked to you in a couple of years, really, but here we are. For the
Right,
first
right.
time, and like there's no prep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't need to. We just get back on that horse, but I want to talk about that rebelliousness because I know that's a strong part of you too. You know
For
what I mean?
sure. For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, and it's yeah, like I have a bunch of notes there, like about like, so I took a one way the wrong way down every avenue, just like they told me not to do. And that immediately, like it spoke to the teenage me that just was done listening to people, but it also spoke like almost more concretely to like the biker me,
Mhm.
where you talk about disobeying traffic laws.
Right. I mean, aren't they a little bit the same?
They are, yeah, very much, very much. They're what that evoked in me was, even so, riding solo is one thing. Riding as a civilian is one thing, and you might skirt the law a little bit sometimes, but then like pack riding sometimes even is can be more intense. And so one of the phrases that was said to me early on in my club life was, if you're rolling deep enough, you are traffic. And so You don't split the pack. If a light changes in the middle of you, everybody's going through. Maybe somebody will come up and they'll stop traffic just to make sure, but it's almost like a funeral procession in that way, where we're gonna go through, and nobody, you're not gonna just pull out into us, like,
Right.
So the first time you experience something like that, or even just, going the wrong way down a one way because you can, it really, at least for me, it was like the scales fell off of my eyes. It was really a very like potent moment, because you realize that there's all of these rules that we've constructed, this whole thing we call society is all just stuff we sort of made up and agreed to do. But you don't have to do any of that.
Right.
You can just not do that thing that that everybody else is expecting of you. You can just not do that.
Yeah.
And it's wild. Like, all of a sudden you recognize that you have this really like intense freedom that is truly scary in a way. Not only do you not have the support structures around you that you thought you did, because that's what a lot of laws are trying to create, is they're trying to make people feel comfortable and safe.
Right.
So you don't have those, but in addition to that, you have this huge responsibility to yourself and the people around you that you love, to keep them safe. Because if you can ignore what society wants, anybody else just as easily can.
Right.
So all of a sudden, the whole construct, like I said, this whole thing we call society, you realize it as like this illusion that it really is. And suddenly you have so much more freedom, yes, but with that comes immense responsibility.
That is, once again, so glad that you brought that up, because let's just talk for a second about, we can all probably guess, as it relates, if you know me and you know this music, that in the song, again, superficially on the surface, I'm probably part of that is complaining about the music business, right? But what you're talking about is, that becomes a metaphor for the bigger thing at large, and that's life. And that is that kind of that hidden little theme that of that song, I think, that creates this kind of universal message. Yes, I think you nailed that. You picked up on something that was definitely not, weren't deeply thinking about that as it was being written. When you're in this case, this is a post-COVID song, so we actually wrote it virtually. But normally I would say, like, you're in a writing room with a co-writer, right? And like, just like, we all are walking in that environment with feelings, right? Something's going on. You show up how you show up, and it is what it is. It's all weather. It's all valid, right? It's like the rain is just as valid as the sun being out and all that stuff. So in this case, I was frustrated about the music business. I'm like, oh, there's all this noise, and everybody says you got to write a song this way, and it's got to be about this topic, and we got to get references to this in there because that's what's hip right now, and that's what's in. And I'm walking in, I'm calling like BS on all of this stuff, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Not about the music business, but about life. So that is huge. You just taught all of us something about about life, by digging in that song. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's what a great reminder.
kind of bridging the two topics that we talked about so far.
Mhm.
Like the very first stanza, like I learned the hard way, I took the long way around, lost like another face in the crowd, had to
Oh,
get
can we
up.
pause there? Yeah, I'm
Sure.
glad that you said that again, because that
Okay.
is what I wanted to, there was another question I wanted to ask you when we were talking about rebelliousness. You were reading off, those that kind of passage right there, and I don't want to lose it again. I wanted to ask you. You were referring to some of those like lyrics that are like a little more rebellious. You mentioned that. I think you were thinking that. I want to kind of hear what you think about it. You were kind of referring to them in the younger years, where that may have led to mistakes or led to unfortunate outcomes or unfortunate consequences. But what I wanted to ask you was, while that may be, don't you like, and not only is it fun to go down the wrong way, just like they told you not to do, because it's clearly fun in our personality, mine and yours, to do that sort of thing. But it's not just because we're like trying to be contrarians, right? It's because it does lead to positive outcome. We have so much proof in our lives that going down the wrong way is not just for the sake of doing it, but it leads to cool shit.
Yeah, for
Am I
sure.
right?
So absolutely. So one, as I get older, I am starting to get a little bit more. I'm starting to develop a little bit more respect for tradition. And one of the phrases I like, and I don't know who said it first, but someone said, "Traditions are solutions to problems that we forgot about."
Mm-hmm.
And that's really that same thing. Like that one way road is one way for a reason, and nobody remembers why that one is a one way road anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an important component. At least it was when I was young, to sort of challenge those assumptions and say, okay, I didn't even realize that there was real value in that one way road anymore now then like I do now. But it was still like, if there is value there, if there's a good reason why that road is one way, prove it. I'm going to go down the wrong way, and we're going to see what happens. And so what you're really doing there is you're challenging these assumptions that we've made. And I think that's important, because traditions are solutions to these old problems, right? But are those old problems even valid? Are these solutions the way we would still solve them?
Wow.
Yeah, and if you have completely forgotten about the problem, you don't even remember why this was the solution. Where long time past now. So is there a better way to solve this problem? And yes, absolutely. Like that's when I'm told, oh, this is the way things are done, I can't. It makes my bones itch. Yeah, but why? And so I need to push those limits and see, like, what are the actual levers we're trying to pull here? What are the problems we're trying to solve? Maybe it is the best way to solve this problem, but maybe it's not. Maybe we need to tear this down and build something new.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So yeah. But yeah, it's not rebellion for the sake of contrarianism. It's rebellion for the sake of progress.
Absolutely. To your point, it's like sometimes if you don't challenge those old one ways, you may be getting in the way of. There's a good chance that you're getting in the way of innovation potentially. And like you say, it's kind of that. I forget what those things are referred to as, but why we do things. There's
like norms and
if you go back in time to see what the origin is, to your point, as it turns out, we do this thing. You go back 100, 200 years. and then you find the answer why we do this thing in 2024 this way. And as it turns out, and as kind of expected, 200 years later, that's not really a problem anymore, but we still do the thing the same way.
Right.
Opportunity for innovation,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it is a problem.
Yes,
You know,
100%.
yeah. Sometimes you go back 2,000 years, and it's uncanny how we're still facing the same problem. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
But yeah, you need that reminder from time to time, and how if nobody's ever breaking the rules, nobody's going to be reminded of anything. You know?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. And did I get in the way of? I wanted to make sure we talked about that because you brought up those lyrics, and I wanted to make sure to ask you about the rebelliousness. But you were going into something. Do you remember what it was?
Sure. Yeah. Just the first Santa, so to speak, it was like, I learned the hard way. I took the long way around. Lost like another face in the crowd. Had to get out. Those first two lines, especially, those really. Okay, and they're related to what we were just talking about as well. Is you go down when you decide to break a rule just for sake of breaking the rule. You do learn a lot of hard lessons. I have had my run-ins with the law.
Yeah.
That's not always. They certainly haven't benefited me.
Right.
In the obvious sense. So you really do learn a lot of lessons the hard way, and as you say, you take the long way around. Like you really sometimes you realize you went back. You found that problem that this rule was solving. You realize it was a real problem, and now you've just caused all this damage and chaos. Breaking it. So now you got to double back, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that was dumb." You really did. You really did take the long way around. You caused yourself a lot more effort.
Yes.
And pain. So, but again, like I just said, somebody has to do that testing. And that those second two lines, like lost like another face in the crowd, had to get out. That to me, that was saying like, all right, everybody's following this rule. I have to be special in some way, right? Like I have to find out who I am. Going back to the, in your youth, you're trying to figure out who you are and create who you are, and just being the same as everybody else, you just know in your heart of hearts that that's not good enough. And so you're so, young and without experience and without any real skill. What can you do other than break some rules, right? And that's, I think many young men go through that. I certainly did, where, again, like I said, it's like making your bones itch. You got to do something.
Yeah.
And that's your way to do it.
100%, man. So something that we do on, or try to kind of do on each episode, is try to, within a given topic, kind of pick kind of three big ideas that stand out. And I usually, depending on the topic at hand, usually kind of come at it a different angle. But at the beginning of the show, we talked about that Bret Hart quote about, he was kind of sharing this life lesson that he felt was the kind of the culmination of his life experience. So I wanted to ask you, maybe what are three things, if we within the context of this topic, Bret was talking about working hard, fearing nothing, giving yourself up to loneliness in some cases, and just remembering that life is more about what you have inside you than maybe what you learn. What are the things that maybe like you've taken away from the ups and downs, from going down the one way, the wrong way, and coming out of it with, like you put so beautifully on the with the in the context of a motorcycle journey, getting lost and coming back with all these newfound lessons. What are some of the, if you could, and they don't have to be the three biggest things, but just three things that jump out to you as it relates to growing?
So I think the biggest sort of theme that I kept coming back to was, that of the virtue of courage. There, when you are going to sort of make your own path, when you're going to pack up a bunch of stuff on your bike and you're just going to go.
Yeah.
And you don't have any plans, you don't have any reservations, you don't have any destinations. You're just going to ride, you're going to follow, you're going to see where the road takes you. There's a certain amount of courage that you need to have, and if you don't, you're going to develop it on your way.
Oh yeah.
To do that, and by that I mean the willingness to put yourself into situations where you are not in control. If you can't relinquish that, like you're not gonna end up in these places where you are learning lessons, to begin with. That ability to sit comfortably in a place in your heart where you're not sure what, there's a certain amount of the virtue of temperance to that goes into it as well, some prudence, some forethought. You want to be prepared. You be prepared for stuff to come up, but you have to be willing to sit in these situations that are uncomfortable, that are unforeseeable. They're things you haven't, you can be generally prepared for situations that come up, but you're gonna land in specific situations that you had no idea were a thing. Take an example. Last year I rode out to Santa Monica.
To the Route 66.
Yeah, from Chicago to Santa Monica, the whole way, all the way down to the pier. When I got to Arizona, I planned to camp the whole time. Got to Arizona, pulled over, and there's all these signs up that are saying no camping, be careful, and then there's like pictures of like scorpions and tarantulas and shit. I was like, oh, I didn't think about this at all. I'm out in the desert. Maybe this is one of those times I tap out and I go grab a hotel room.
Right.
But you have to be willing to get put into those situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I was talking to people about what I'm going to do on this trip, like my sister's asking me, how much water are you taking with? And like everybody wants to know how much you're paying. And it's like there's only so much room on the motorcycle. You cannot prepare for every single situation.
Yeah.
You have to have the courage to do what you can to prepare, be ready, but then go and take some risks.
Yes. that, man, I'm glad you brought that one up. It's so fun. It's so amazing to me. I really believe in my heart that most of us in life are we're more similar than we're different. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting how we all, with that being said, that's why it's just so maddening to see everybody freaking out right now with in the world. But
Yeah.
point being, what's really cool is that it's so interesting to me that we all come across like the same like beliefs and ideas and lessons, the same lessons, but we learn about them in different ways. So a lot of what you were talking about within that first item, courage, I'm glad you went into that detail because it reminded me of, me, I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, right?
Right.
And one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that guy is a quote. And I kind of, it's like gospel to me. It's like, let me see if I can get it right. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you're willing to tolerate. So I think that's exactly what it is that you're talking about. And I couldn't agree more. It's like, and I've never really described it as courage, but that's exactly what it is. Um, yeah, allowing uncertainty into your life and kind of getting yourself out. It's kind of interesting. We have boxes here, right? If you can just get outside of that box, allow yourself outside of that box, giving up the reins just a little bit. A lot of people that are, I think, suffering in the world, they like to control too much, right? If you can let go of that, I struggle with it just as much as anybody else does. I notice my anxiety, my stress, which is really just another word for fear, right? When I let go of that fear, that is kind of masked as stress and anxiety. It's really just my desire to probably control some things, that I don't need to be controlling, and be more open to that. And again, it's a work in progress, but I couldn't agree more. Courage is a huge one.
I have
What
a
about number two?
perfect
Oh,
metaphor
go
for
ahead.
what you were just talking
Yes,
about. So
please.
there's with motorcycles, there's a thing called a death wobble or a tank slapper.
Mhm.
And it's where you're on the bike and for whatever reason, the bike loses some stability and the handlebars start to shake back and forth and the bike starts to follow it. And depending on, what caused the issue and how you got into that situation, it can be very, very dangerous. It's one of the, when that happens, it's very, very common for people to go down. When I was a very, baby biker, when I was first learning to ride, I thought there was something wrong with my bike. And I was telling one of my friends I rode, every time I get up above 60, the bike starts to shake. Like it just starts to wobble. And he was like, and I had bought the bike from his brother. So he's, interpreting it from, was there something wrong with the bike that my brother sold you? And he's like, I've never heard, me and my brother have ridden handlebar to handlebar, 85, no problem on that bike. Like that's never happened. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what's causing it. But every time I got to 60, like it would just start wobbling more and more and more and more. And I just have to let off the throttle and, it would stabilize and whatnot. Eventually what I realized, the way that motorcycles work is they're doing 99% of the work of keeping the bike balanced. You're really there to give it some suggestions, but the bike
Right.
is doing all of the work. If the bike is leaning to one way, it's going to automatically, like the tire is going to automatically rotate, and that's going to right the bike. And then if it's leaning the other way, it's going to rotate the other way, and it's going to right the bike. And what was happening to me was when I got up to 60, that's when I started to get a little nervous. and I started holding on to the handlebars too tightly. And as a result, the bike was not able to do its job of correcting
Got in
course.
the way.
So by holding on tighter and tighter and tighter, I'm actually causing the bike to start and putting myself in danger. And as soon as I realized, just let go, just take it easy. You can still go fast. Just take it easy. That was when all of a sudden that problem went away. I think that's a perfect metaphor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like getting in our own way.
Yeah.
You know? Amazing. How about another one? What would be another one that jumps out in your mind?
The second biggest thing that jumped out to me with respect to the song was the idea, the concept of being present. And this may just be sort of a result of where I'm at in life. I am, if we were to, I'm not a very religious guy, but if we were to try to pin me to what is closest to my belief system, a non-supernatural version of Buddhism would probably be closest. And the ability to just live in the present moment, and kind of segueing from what we were just talking about, not trying to control everything, but just to exist, is something that spoke to me, which is part of why I found it interesting about you saying the idea of being at a crossroads and circling back. And I had a similar image into my mind, but to me, the home that you're finding your way back to, it's a space in your soul, and you come to realize that really that home was, because it's a part of you, that home was always with you and always will be with you. And you will forever be finding your way back to it.
Yeah.
While simultaneously always carrying it with you. And so the stuff, like I mentioned before, about realizing the stuff that's not you, and letting go of that stuff, and forgetting the noise, that it mentioned later in the song, casting all of that stuff aside, that was what spoke to me, really finding that true self, and realizing that as long as you have the ability to be present, you'll still always be finding your way back home, but you'll also already be home at the same time, if that makes any sense.
100%. I love what you said about that. Kind of always carrying that. This may not be exactly where you were going. Maybe it was. Reminds me of this experience that I had at this seminar years ago, back in 2017 or something, 2018 maybe. But you mentioned, when you were just discussing that, what I was thinking about was the younger me that I'm kind of referring to it, as far as this full circle, this way back home. That there's a younger me. I don't know about you, but I look at this is going to get a little weird up in the clouds a little bit, but bear with me. See, tell me if you relate. I look at moving through life these days as kind of carrying with this song in mind, this mindset in mind, carrying a younger me with me. The little 5-year-old is he's like my little brother now. And, I get a little emotional talking on this topic. I think the reason is because when you're getting old like we are, and you've created a beautiful life for yourself, you look back to where you started. And for me, like I say, it's like now I just carry this little 5-year-old little brother version of me with me wherever I go. Because I want to I don't, I guess I'm trying to make up for everything, all the hard stuff. And, I don't know who's trying to make who proud anymore. It's all confusing now. But what's not confusing is that I'm bringing this, the troubled version of me with me. Oh, fuck. And that's the first time this ever happened. I'm getting a little hard to talk. Okay. Let me get myself together here. Okay. And just for a little bit of context, back in 2018, I went to this Tony Robbins seminar, and the event is called Date with Destiny. I couldn't recommend it enough to anybody looking for some self-help assistance. Anyway, after kind of the culmination of the 7 day, I think it was a 7-day event. The culmination of the event is this. I think it was like a 5-hour hypnosis / meditation, right? And I know I came to learn around that time that it probably we've all, and I'm not comparing one to another, but we all kind of had some childhood trauma around the ages of 5 to like 7, somewhere in that range, from just talking to people and knowing people and like kind of going through this experience with like 7,000 other people. It seemed that everybody's got stuff that was kind of ingrained into them as children, and it drives the way. I think what makes it emotional for me is that what you went through as a child drives every decision that you make from there on out, for better or for worse. So for all the things that you blame whoever, you know what I mean, for putting you through what you went through, for all of that, there's a lot of blessings that came along the way. And that blessing, all those blessings are your life, all those amazing things. Like I bet you feel the same way. I wouldn't want to change anything. I won't want to be in anybody's shoes. I want to be in my shoes, because this is an amazing life. When I stop, thinking about myself and my problems, I'm reminded about all that I can be grateful for. So again, sorry, I get a little emotional there. But that's the context. Went through this meditation, this hypnosis experience, and what I'm trying to say is that I don't know how everybody in that crowd was, because we're all kind of doing this, eyes closed. There's music, there's voice, blah blah blah, and it's guided. I don't recall though if we were all supposed to have the same experience or the same kind of experience, but mine was very specifically going back in transcending space and time, going to grab my 5-year-old self and bringing him up to the present and getting him out of all that pain, right? So all I had to say, that's what you made me upset.
It is like amazing that you bring that up. Like, I had a very similar experience last summer. Mine was with the assistance of mushrooms. But,
Nice.
we were like hanging out in my backyard, doing a fire pit, just kind of hanging out. And I don't even remember why, but somehow like I got into my mind thinking about my younger self as well. And it was a very dissociative experience where like I could just see him struggling and fighting and not even knowing where to direct his anger. He just he knew stuff was wrong, but he didn't know what to do about it. And I was overwhelmed with emotion.
Mhm.
There was, the obvious like sadness of like, I'm so sorry that these things, happen to you.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, just like, empathy and just wanting to comfort like that younger self, like, don't worry, man, like we figure it out. It gets better. Like all this stuff sucks, but we're gonna get around. We're gonna get over all of this. And so yeah, so it's interesting that you bring that up because, like I said, it was a very similar and like life affirming experience for me to the point where I have like it's changed the way that I interact even with my siblings.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, like we all, well, for those of my siblings that did live in the same home with me, like we all lived in the same home. We all went through similar things growing up. So we all kind of have this baggage
Hmm.
that we carry with us. And that experience has just, I haven't figured out how to do it yet. I'm trying to figure out how to like give the benefit of that experience to my siblings as well so they can
Yeah.
also do the same growing. It's like I don't know why, but it's like it's evoking to me like the image of like that a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. Like all of a
100%.
sudden you break through and you realize how transformative that was and how much it is still a part of you, but how it cannot now that you've been through it, it can't hold you back anymore. And in fact, exactly to your point, like I wouldn't trade away any of those experiences. All of those experiences, traumatic as they may have been, were have given me like strength of character that I
Oh
have
yeah.
now that I wouldn't want to be the kind of man that I would be not having had those experiences.
100%, man. You know what they say? It's like is that Goo Goo Dolls line in the song "Scars are souvenirs you never lose." It's a good thing. I
Yeah.
think it's like could also call it like like a tattoo. Something
Mhm.
that's like a constant reminder, right? Again, for better or worse, and hopefully, it's more for better as we get older. That's what I find. It's like y- I used to use whatever I feel like my trauma is like. I used to use it. It used to manifest itself. I guess this is the whole point of all this, and I think why these ideas that you introduced here are so powerful on this topic is in your younger years, not unexpectedly, this trauma manifests itself in unproductive ways. But as you get older, I think that's where it makes me a little emotional and happy and proud and all those things because you start using it for good, and it's like they start to become superpowers. The things that used to like screw up your life,
Right.
or you used to allow these things to screw up your life as you get older. If you work hard at it, it tends to become turn into superpowers, which is
For
can't put a
sure.
price on that. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't not to be too much of an old man shouting at the clouds, but
yeah,
it's one of the things that worries me about sort of the climate of today,
oh yeah,
cultural climate of today, is that we've we've granted some sort of like nobility to victimhood.
yes,
And yeah, I mean that's people go through bad stuff, and they do deserve our empathy, but from an individual point of view, you have the option of allowing that trauma to make you a victim, or,
Mhm.
to use your word, make you a fucking superhero. And that it's only through integrating all of that darkness, and not stuffing it down, not trying to forget about it, but integrating it and using it and putting it to good use, that really makes the difference on the character, the quality of person you're going to be.
Absolutely. God, it got so heavy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. This is a great episode, man. How about number 3?
Number 3. All
Try not
right.
to try
Let's
not to
see.
cry this time on number 3.
Yeah, right. Let's try to get something with a little more levity here.
No, I'm
Um,
happy to do it. This is good TV, you know.
um, I think the third thing really is, it's related to just what we just talked about, and it's also related to number 2 a bit. But less on being present and more on to integration of those former selves, right? Where, you talk about, like, getting back to who you were before the noise, and you say, like, yeah, that kind of free. Like, obviously, like, we all, like, it can be assumed we all know exactly what kind of free you're talking about. It's
Mhm.
that youthful, I don't even know what the worries of adulthood are yet.
Yeah.
I'm just out here being me. And I'm that kind of free. And we all know that. Uh, we all know it just in our heart of hearts. So having that, coming, go out, get lost, come back, find your bearing, and now integrating that inner child, like, not, trauma is being one thing, but just that inner freedom, and I don't want to say carefree, and openness, like that openness to experience, and that willingness to adventure. That was like the third major, like, theme that really was thought provoking to me. And in so far, a lot of the stuff that we have talked about has been stuff where I had more, I could quickly draw up experience to describe, and make analogies and whatnot. This concept is more of something that it was thought provoking, in, like, how can I do that, like, and carry that forward, because I do think we started off talking about pranks we pulled at the old job. And I talked about how I did that, a little bit when I first started this job, but that it has been a long time.
Right.
There's a certain amount of, like, childlike carefreeness and whatnot that I want to bring forward. And so that it's made me think of, how can I do that? Like, how can I, I'm only 40. There's no reason I can't, have that kind of lightness of the soul. So that's been the
100%.
third thing.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear, because it reminded me of another quote that I heard recently in a documentary. Again, a guy named Shawn Michaels that I really looked up to when I was a kid, from a creative standpoint, from a performance level standpoint. Recently watched a documentary in the last couple of years or so, and he has this quote that stuck with me. Like, somebody said something, you're like, oh yeah, I really feel that in my nervous system. He says, and he's talking in the context of a creative life, but I think it's very universal. And to what you're saying, he says, if you work in a creative line of work and you live like you have nothing to lose, whether it's true or not, whether you're just acting that way or you actually have nothing to lose, you are unbeatable. You do have those superpowers, to really his point was creatively carve something that's never existed before, and perform at a level because you can dedicate everything to it with the right mindset. That was kind of what he was saying. But I think as it relates to this song and what you're saying, I immediately thought of that quote because I've kind of adopted that as always like a new reminder that I would try to stick in the back of my head as it relates to life. Like you say, what is that really? It's just kind of like proceeding with some childlike wonder, proceeding. How scared are kids of like what people think of them? Like
Right.
none. They don't even know what that means, right? Again, this idea of kind of what you're saying about like kind of having those childlike qualities once again, readopting those, you can proceed in a way when you don't care what people think, and when I look at that from you can probably imagine from a creative standpoint with music. I kind of adopt that. I think this is an Andy Warhol quote, but he says basically like, I wrote it down somewhere, I think is I don't know where it is, but it's basically like make art. It's like 3 steps, like make art. Number 2, put it out and let people decide if it's good or not. And number 3, like go back to making more art.
Right.
Again, back to life. It's like how many things do we close ourselves off to if we're living in fear of something, you know what I mean? So that made me think of that. So great point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so this may be like a weird segue, but again, like it's related in the childlike wonder that I want to, cultivate in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So last year I went to Santa Monica. This year I rode out to New York. I went to DC first, but then I went to New York. I wanted to complete the coast to coast trip.
Very cool.
So on my way back from New York, I rode through like the hills in Pennsylvania, and definitely the most pretty ride I've been on so far. I've done a lot of rides, and previously the sort of woods around Flagstaff were my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Now the hills in Pennsylvania were my favorite. And I remember like there's this part where I take this kind of sharp right and then a hairpin left, and it's kind of going up a hill, and there's I'm going under a bridge and there's train tracks above me, and just as I'm making this hairpin turn, there's a train coming over me, and I'm riding next to the train, and I don't know what it was about this particular moment, but it was just like I felt like a kid, and I was just like, it's like, again, it's just such awe and wonder at like this is all hills and trees, but like this train is really cool too. And I'm like,
Yep.
ride my motorcycle. And it was just this like immense appreciation for the moment that I'm in. And it's just like, I'm out here doing whatever I want, you know, kind of stuff. And that sort of like carefree wandering, so to speak, was something that really spoke to me. And that was, again, that's what, you know, that sort of freedom, I think, is what, you know, what I was picking up from the song.
Oh yeah, man. That's living. Those, I think those moments are the ones worth spending money on, you know, spending our time or money on, spending our resources on. Very cool, man. Yeah, you know, you mentioned Flagstaff. I talked about it in a previous episode. I did a solo episode early on in the podcast, and um, about this. You know, I didn't do a cross country thing as much as I'd like. I want to. I flew into Phoenix and did like a 2,500-mile circle, and I, yeah, you take these kind of trips that you're referring to here. That stuff is just so valuable to the soul. You know, they say, you know, when you talk about material things, it's cliche, but they say, you know, you can't take that stuff with you when you go. You can take those experiences. I feel like these are soul experiences that just kind of imprint on you all these different things and turn you into who you are. So that is really cool to hear and to hear about, you know, because I have a similar feeling about Flagstaff. So if you're saying that these Pennsylvania mountains are something to see, I'm looking for. Is that on the kind of like on the Appalachian Trail kind of thing? Like
I would have to like look at a map and figure out like exactly where I was. I was coming pretty much due west from New York City at the time, and I am pretty confident I had only just gotten into Pennsylvania, so it would have been like from the eastern border, maybe 20 to 30 minutes west of that. But I would have to double check.
Probably not far from Philly, maybe, right?
It was not too far from Philly. Yeah, it was certainly away from all of the city stuff, but yeah, it wasn't too far.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Dude, this has been awesome. I have one more big question for you. If you have it, you good? Have it in you. This is a great episode, dude. This is going to I think whatever's to come from here and whatever we've done so far. This is a really great episode. I appreciate you being here, man. I usually try to come up with a question that around our younger self and what a topic that we're on to, you know, kind of close the show with something like that. You know, we're talking about full circle. We're talking about finding our way back home in a sense that getting back to our younger self in attitude and, you know, fearlessness and, you know, proceeding with what we've had inside of us, the strength we've had inside of us from day one, all of that stuff. So, you know, and I talked about like, you know, going back and grabbing my younger self and bringing them up to present. If you could go back and have a quick conversation with your younger self to give them a heads up on all of this stuff, you know, that you think would be, you know, kind of a helpful anecdote, a helpful sentiment, where you could save him maybe from some pain. So he has maybe a little less of turbulent road ahead, what do you think it would be?
Whew.
Sorry to drop that one on you.
No, it's a good one. I mean, so that my only regret about riding motorcycles is that I didn't do it earlier. So buy a motorcycle would probably be one
There
thing.
you go.
But in terms of, and I think that would probably have some pretty significant impacts on them. But if there's anything that I would want to, like, any guidance I would want to give to my younger self, it would be to, like, let go of the anger and, like, embrace love. There was like and be in the present moment more. And I think all three of those things are sort of related. I think one of the lessons that I've learned recently is, like, when you are fully present, there's really no room in the present moment for anger or hatred. But there is plenty of room for love and compassion. And that being forced into the present moment is, I think, probably the biggest thing that attracted me to bikes. But bikes are not, whatever it is, that would be what I would want. That would be the lesson I would want my younger self to learn earlier. There's plenty of decisions we made along the way that, hey, don't do that. This isn't going to work out the way you think it is. Stay away from that one. She's dangerous. But but all of that stuff.
Another way that we're similar.
Right. But all of that stuff is just details. Like the big lesson, I think, is be present. Realize that the present doesn't contain any anger. All it contains is love. And that's what I would want to tell my younger self.
That's such a great one. I feel like you and, we recorded an episode yesterday, and the topic of love and having that as a focus in your life on a regular basis. Yeah, I feel like you guys are. I say that to say I feel like you guys are teaching me something and giving me a good reminder here. At least as of the current me, as of the last year or two. I've been a little too on the bitter side and a little on the closed off side, and just during this roller coaster of life, how it can be when you're in a valley as opposed to a peak. I appreciate both of you guys reminding me on this. It's kind of been something that life has been, how life is. It kind of gives you what you need, and that's why it's always good to have the antenna, keep your eyes open, be open-minded to those messages that it's like, hey, wake up to this thought. It's it's time to listen. So I hear what you're saying completely, and I totally agree. Yeah, it also reminds me, you've touched on something as well. It's hard to it's impossible, not hard. It's impossible to. This is another Tony Robbins thing. I'm only paraphrasing and just kind of doing my version of it, of where it's like impossible to feel a positive emotion at the same time that you're feeling a negative emotion. So like one of those strategies for to get out of stress and fear and anxiety and all these things. That's why they always, when you're trying to figure out how to do that, everybody kind of says the same thing, and it's because there's such an easy way, is like to just adopt immediate gratitude, right? You
Mhm.
can't be scared while you're truly feeling grateful. It is literally impossible. And I think the same thing applies to love, because it's really the same deal. It's like, if, as you said, there's no room. Like when you're in that right headspace there, and mindset and emotional space, there's really no room for all that garbage. But there's plenty
Yeah.
of room for love. And when you are feeling love and throwing that out into the world, there's, you tend to not be scared or anxious or stressed or any of those things, right?
Yeah, for sure. Mindfulness has become like a big part of my life. And one thing that I found that I think anybody can find if they, sit down and try to pay attention is that if you're just paying attention to what experience is like in the present moment, you realize you have like thoughts come and go and emotions kind of come and go, and you latch on to them and you start like, your monkey brain starts playing them over and over in your head, and they start coloring your mood and whatnot. But eventually you develop this sort of awareness of what's happening, in your mind, and you realize that a step removed from that, there's just this witness, that just, is the real flow of experience or whatnot. And in that place, there is no anger. Anger comes and reflects off of that and goes away.
Mhm.
But there is this like love, for lack of a better word, that does seem to be a part of it. So
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Um, Dude, this has been so much fun. Thank you for being here.
yeah, thanks for having me. I have also had a blast.
Dude, is there anything that you'd like to plug?
I
Cool.
maybe I don't have anything up right now, but I have been working on putting some stuff together. So I will probably something like a blog and
Oh,
whatnot.
sweet.
But yeah, I'm putting some stuff together. Maybe once I get a site up and all of that jazz, we could throw some links in the description or something like that.
That'd be perfect. That'd be perfect. Yeah, just let me know. Would love to do that. Uh, that is killer. That's exciting. Keep me posted on it, because I want to check
Yeah,
it out.
we'll do.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's do it again, and maybe, you find your way to Nashville or I find my way to Chicago, and we can do this in person, plus hang out, because it's been way too long.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Let's do it. Dude, thank you so much. Dude, have a great rest of your weekend, and let's talk soon.
Yeah, man, you do the same.
Awesome. See you later, everybody. See you next time.
You can find me